So the Hawks walked out of the 2019 draft with a few things, but the two things we're going to talk about here, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter. Seems like they were really set on Hunter, given that they traded up to get the guy, and then they were rumored for Reddish anyway, and they ended up selecting him as well. And so now the core 5 players of this team are Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins. Amari Spellman is a wait and see, and I'm sure they have some other young dudes who could end up doing something, but we're really just going to talk about these guys. So I did a whole vid talking about why I liked the idea of Cam Reddish on the Hawks, and I'm not going to repeat everything I said in that vid, but I will say the basic things, which are Cam, of course, his college year was not the best. Seemed like he didn't really know how to play off of Zion and RJ, and supposed to be a great shooter, but his percentages weren't really there. But he's still a big dude who can go off the dribble and make threes, and now he doesn't have to be the main piece of an offense. I mean, I don't know where he is in the pecking order of this team's shot attempts. It's definitely at the most number 3 behind Trae and Collins. That'll be good for Reddish. He just doesn't have to have too much on his plate early on, because I think, depending on whatever team he ended up on, could have been a little too much for him to handle day one, but now he can kind of sink into this team and be a part of a game plan. And some games he'll only take 2 or 3 shots, maybe a few more than that, but you get what I'm going for. He's not going to have the ball in his hand all the time. He can have open shots created for him, which is going to be really good. And I think he could also be a good defender for this team because of his size and his switchability, and that's definitely going to be a theme for these guys moving forward. So I do like Cam Reddish on this team, and can he be a guy who can one day create ISO situations for them and all that? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Trae Young, for as high of his ceiling as I think he has, which is many all-star teams and probably some all-NBA contention, probably not like this upcoming season, but we fast forward a couple years and that stuff. But even so, he's a small guy, so to have that big dude who can go off the dribble, which I'm sure Atlanta's hoping Cam can be in some time, that is really good. And it could also give them a couple of post-up options, because Collins can score in the post, and Reddish hopefully as well. Huerter at least has the size and the shot to be a post scorer, but I wouldn't bet on it too much. So now we move on to DeAndre Hunter, and I praise the guy's defense a lot. I think he can be one of the better defensive players in the NBA in pretty much all areas, defending the post, defending one-on-one, being a bit of a rim protector. His block and steal numbers were not through the roof in college, which could be a little bit of a concern. But even so, his defensive instincts are certainly there. And he's just going to be able to defend a lot of positions for this team. And the switchability they have between Huerter, Cam, DeAndre, and Collins is really something. You're still going to have to hide Trae, but I think that's doable. I mean, if you have 4 guys who are big and can defend a lot of positions and play really good help defense and all that, and maybe Hunter can be an all-defense candidate. We don't know. That might be a little optimistic, but maybe it's totally realistic for what he showed in college. Then that can be enough to plug the fact that Trae Young is like 5'2". So that's really cool. I also think Hunter has potential as a roller, and I think his handle is good enough to where we could see him doing some Draymond things in time. I don't expect him to be doing pick and rolls or ISOs, but I think he can bring the ball up in transition, and if you trap Trae on a screen, then I think he can throw it to Hunter around the free throw line or whatever, and he can go off the dribble for 1 or 2 bounces, and he can make something good happen, whether that's an alley-oop up to Collins or a shot from himself. I think he's good enough on offense to do those things. You have to think he's also going to be good enough to make corner threes and shots at the top of the key if it's not that great of a closeout, and maybe he'll even be able to attack some closeouts as well. So if these two end up being what we think they can be, then I do think Atlanta kind of nailed this, because they did fill in a lot of the potential problems they could have down the road in terms of lack of size and not enough versatility on defense given the problems that Trae Young can have there. Now looking at everything as a whole, I mean, I start to ask myself, who's going to end up being the second best player on this team? It would suggest it's John Collins based on the year that he just had and Herter and all that. But a little part of me, while I do see the things to be excited about with Collins, he's not the biggest guy in the world, and I do fear he did have a bit of a box score season. Now, that being said, his shooting has shown good signs, and he has been able to create for himself, and of course he's pretty athletic, so there is a chance that he is some 20-point scorer who can kind of do a little bit of everything, catch alley-oops and attack switches, and the jumper can keep on improving, and he can pick and roll and pick and pop. But I don't know, I guess I'm still waiting and seeing on that one. Herter can definitely be at least like a 16-point scorer. I don't know if we can ask any more than that because while he's of course a very good shooter, I just don't know if he's going to be that lights out dude who's taking pull-up threes and taking a bunch of threes with a guy in his face and hitting like 17-footers as if they're automatic. He could certainly make shots. I feel like he might have a little bit more of a J.J. Redick-esque shooting impact than a Klay Thompson one, I guess, which is still very impactful. But if there are levels to how effective you are as a shooter, I guess he's in like the B-plus tier. But that combined with Trae Young is still really difficult to defend because we know Trae is going to hit all the crazy shots and everything. So with those two moving off the ball, which we are going to have to see if the Hawks do more of that because they did run a lot of pick and roll last year, which is nice, but you hope they just don't do that too much with the potential of these two. That can be really difficult to defend. It can force a lot of switches from opposing teams. Then you can take advantage of that, of course. Seems like Hunter and Cam are going to be able to make threes themselves. So this team could just be a really good blend of outside shooting, switchability on defense. Trae can take somebody off the dribble. Collins can create some buckets out of nowhere. We hope Reddish can do that in time. And now they all have the chance to just grow together, which I think is really important, learn each other's tendencies and all that stuff. I do want to get back to Collins for a second, though. Can he play center? So his second season, he shared pretty much all of his minutes with either Dwayne Dedmon or Alex Len. So he was playing the 4 spot, right? And there's a chance that he can't play center. Maybe he's just not big enough for it. But if he can play the 5 spot and you can play all 5 of these guys probably as your starting lineup, because I think Hunter can play the 4, or maybe even Reddish can play the 4. They're both big dudes, whichever one, I guess. Then I guess that kind of unlocks this team's real potential to just be a modern NBA team. Not to say they can't still be really good if Collins is the 4 and they have some other center, and then maybe it's Cam to the bench or it's Herter or Hunter. But Collins at the 5 does seem a little bit more exciting for this team. So we'll see if he can do that. But yeah, I think the future projection of this team is one to be pretty intrigued about. And another thing to pay attention to is all these guys are on rookie contracts, so the team is not very expensive, and they're gonna have to sign veterans. In fact, that's what I would probably focus on from here on out. As far as how much money they're gonna have, I mean, these two are gonna cost like $14 million combined or whatever because they're top 10 picks. So that takes them to over $70 million. That still gives them a decent amount of money to play with, and whether that means re-signing Dedmon or going after other guys. But yeah, the Hawks have a lot of good things going for them, so should be fun. They'll definitely be a team to watch on League Pass. Interesting question. Can they make the playoffs in the East this upcoming year? Now, I do like all 5 of those guys, but the Pistons won 41 games. Do we think that a lot of dudes in their second, third, or rookie seasons can win 40-something games in the East? I think that's a little much to ask for, but they'll certainly be a lot of fun. And hell, maybe they could make some Sacramento Kings-esque jump. Who knows? Maybe Trae just lights the world on fire. So, that's it. They look good.